He barked for hours. We ignored it. That almost killed her. The sun was already high over Bozeman, Montana, turning the dry field into a sheet of gold. Dust clung to my boots as I checked the fences on the east pasture. A usual morning routine. But that morning, something was different. A bark, sharp, rhythmic, panicked, echoed across the field again. 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 We'd heard it earlier, just after dawn. One of the ranch hands muttered, "That stray German shepherd puppy again. Probably chasing chickens." We laughed it off. That's what stray dogs do out here. They bark, they run, they disappear. But this bark didn't disappear. It kept cutting through the wind. Louder, closer, desperate. By the time I dropped my gloves and started toward the sound, something inside me already knew it wasn't what we thought. I found him near the northern fence line, just past the old loading gate. A black and tan German shepherd puppy, no more than 4.5 months old. Caked in dust, ribs visible under his coat. He was standing with his front paws braced, body stiff, his bark raw and broken from hours of strain. His tail didn't wag. He didn't run. He just barked and barked directly at me. Then I saw her, Ruby. She was down. My horse, my partner, lying in the dirt, eyes wide with panic, her flank rising in fast, short breaths. Her left hind leg was twisted, and from beneath it, I saw rusted metal glinting in the sun. A trap, an old, illegal snare trap clenched tight around her lower leg. Blood had soaked into the dry ground. She'd collapsed trying to get free. And this puppy, he hadn't left her. My heart stopped. I dropped to my knees beside her, not knowing where to look first. Her leg, her face, or the puppy still barking behind me. But when I reached out to examine the trap, he lunged forward, barking louder, shielding her with his small frame. "I'm trying to help," I shouted, more to calm myself than him. He didn't care. His body trembled, his paws rooted in the dirt. He wouldn't move. I froze. Not because of him, but because of me. My mind shot backward, years back to a porch. A scream, a younger version of myself, frozen as a dog, lunged toward my sister. I never forgot that sound, never forgot the blood, never forgot the guilt. And now here I was, paralyzed again because of a puppy. One of the workers finally caught up behind me. "Nathan, is that Ruby?" "What the?" "She's caught." I choked out. "She's bleeding into the dirt, and we had almost let her die." He didn't leave her side. Not for a second. When we finally reached her, the German shepherd puppy had already done more than we could have imagined. There were marks in the dirt, circles around her body where he had paced all night. In the soft patches, you could see where he had curled beside her, using his small body to block the wind. And in the dried blood near her muzzle, I saw the streaks from his tongue. He'd been licking her face, trying to wake her, or maybe just trying to comfort her. The trap was old and rusted, buried just beneath the grass. Someone had set it a long time ago and forgotten it, or didn't care who it might catch. Ruby must have stepped into it during the early hours, and no one had heard her cries over the wind except him. She was trembling when we got the trap open. Her leg was swelling fast, the bone possibly fractured, but her eyes never left the puppy. Every time he moved, she tried to follow. When we lifted her into the trailer, she whinnied and flailed until he barked again, sharp and firm. Only then did she go still. I stayed back, watching it all unfold like I wasn't part of it. My hands clenched, my jaw tight. I didn't want him near her. That part of me, buried deep, rose again like a warning. But he didn't care about me. He wasn't looking for affection. He didn't approach. He just positioned himself between Ruby and us. A dusty, trembling little body planted like a soldier, barking at any hand that came too close. "He's protecting her," someone said behind me. "Should we, I don't know, catch him?" "No," I said too quickly. "Let's just get her to the vet." He followed us halfway down the field and stopped at the gate. He didn't try to sneak in. He didn't whine. He just sat dusty, silent, watching like his job wasn't done yet. I couldn't look at him for long. I turned away and felt my pulse race. Irrational, I knew. But that old fear doesn't care about logic. I didn't want him near me, near her, near any of us. Not because I thought he'd bite, because I couldn't trust myself not to remember. When the truck rolled away, I caught one last glimpse in the rearview mirror. He was still there, sitting at the gate, tilted just slightly. Eyes locked on Ruby, eyes locked till the trailer disappeared from view. He didn't bark again. He just waited. We got Ruby to the vet clinic just outside of Boseziman within the hour. They took her in fast. IV fluids, x-rays, sedation. The snare had dug deep, but no bones were shattered. They said she was lucky. I didn't feel lucky. I felt sick. Back at the ranch, I couldn't stop thinking about him, the German Shepherd puppy. I didn't even know his name. No one did. No tags, no collar, just a wiry frame, alert eyes, and a bark that wouldn't stop until we listened. When I pulled up near the gate that afternoon, he was still there, sitting in the same spot like he hadn't moved. His ears perked when my truck door slammed, but he didn't approach. He just looked past me toward the stable where Ruby had been. "Still here," I muttered, rubbing the back of my neck. One of the hands walked by with a hay bale and nodded toward him. "Thought he'd be gone by now." "Me too. You want me to leave him something? Food or water?" "No," I answered before I could think. "He'll leave when he's ready." But he didn't. He stayed at that gate all day, never barked, never moved more than a few feet, just watched. That night I locked every gate on the property. I told myself it was routine. I checked all the barns, the sheds, the side paths. I told myself it was about safety, but deep down, I knew what I was really doing. I was trying to close him out. Keep that puppy on the outside of the fence and the outside of my head. Didn't work. Every creak of the windmill made me think of his bark. Every shift of the barn doors reminded me of his pacing pause. Every time I looked at Ruby's empty stall, I felt a tug behind my ribs. I hated that tug because I knew exactly what it meant. The next morning I didn't see him. Not at the gate, not on the road, not anywhere. For a second I felt relief. Maybe he'd moved on. Maybe the wind had finally carried him off to the hills where stray dogs belonged. But then I walked into the stable, and Ruby, sedated, bandaged, still not weight-bearing, was agitated. She shifted in her stall, tossing her head, refusing her feed. She was looking around. For someone, not me. "Where's that dog?" one of the hands asked, glancing outside. "I think he's gone," I said. But the words tasted wrong because something in me whispered he wasn't. Not really. That night I didn't sleep. I couldn't shake the image of him sitting in the dust, eyes fixed on the barn. I didn't tell anyone what I did next, not even myself. Just after sunrise, I grabbed my coat and drove out toward the open fields behind the East Ridge. Didn't tell the crew. Didn't bring feed. Didn't plan it. I just drove. The morning was cold and still. Thin fog curled over the grass, the kind that burns off fast once the sun clears the horizon. But for those early minutes, it softened everything. Made the land look dreamlike or haunted. I kept my window down, listening. No barking, no paws on gravel, nothing. I parked near the old sheep pen we hadn't used in years and stepped out, squinting into the frost-covered brush. That's when I saw it, a dip in the tall grass, fresh. I walked closer and crouched down. A patch of dirt was pressed flat, outlined in mud and crushed sheep wool. Right in the center, a shallow indentation just big enough for a young German Shepherd puppy to curl into. He'd slept there. Next to the nest was a torn, open plastic wrapper, jerky. One of our hands must have left it near the fence, but it was untouched, not even a nibble. I looked around. No paw prints leading away. The grass was stiff with ice. He could have gone anywhere. Still, I said it out loud. "Why didn't you just take the food?" My voice disappeared into the open air. I stood there for a while, just breathing, trying not to feel too much, trying not to picture Ruby trembling in the dirt, trying not to picture him pressed against her body like a living shield. A baby dog guarding a 1,000-pound animal like it was his mission in life. He didn't even know her. Or maybe he did, in some way we don't understand. The cold bit through my sleeves, and I turned back to the truck, brushing dried grass from my jeans. But even as I walked away, I kept seeing him standing between us, looking me dead in the eyes, not barking anymore, just waiting. Back at the ranch, I walked straight to Ruby's stall. She was calmer that morning, but still not eating much. Her leg was better, less swelling, less heat. but her eyes searched the doorway when I stepped inside. "It's just me," I muttered. She let out a soft, tired breath and lowered her head. I reached for the feed bucket, then stopped. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe to hear paws on gravel. Maybe to hear that broken bark again. But the silence felt too loud, like something important had slipped away while we weren't paying attention. That night I sat on the porch alone, wrapped in an old blanket, trying to ignore the wind. I watched the fields for a long time. Nothing moved. No shadow, no ears, no sound. Only the ache in my chest and a question I couldn't let go of. Where had he gone? And why did it feel like I needed him to come back? The next day I couldn't focus on anything. I walked the pastures, checked water lines, fixed a broken latch on the east gate, but my eyes kept drifting toward the hills beyond the ranch, toward the wind-rippled grass where that German Shepherd puppy had last been seen. I told myself it didn't matter, that he was just a stray, just another lost animal passing through. But I was lying. By noon I gave up pretending. I took my truck and drove toward the tree-line where the land starts to rise. Pulled over near the ridge and set out on foot. The sun was hot for spring, and dust clung to my boots like it had been waiting. I searched ditches, watched the fence lines, scanned every shadow for movement. Finally, near an old cattle run that hadn't been used in years, I saw them. Prints, small ones, paws. They led to a spot under a collapsed section of fence, half hidden by thorn brush and sage. I crouched down, found matted grass, a pile of feathers, a cracked water bottle someone must have thrown from a truck long ago. And in the center, a lump of old wool and dirt shaped like a nest. He'd been sleeping there, alone. I stepped back. A mix of frustration and guilt swelled in my throat. I looked around again. Nothing but wind and open land. "You saved her," I said to the emptiness, "and I couldn't even look at you." That's what haunted me. Not that he was gone, that I had pushed him away, that he came to help, and I shut him out. I stayed out there longer than I meant to until the shadows started to shift, and the horses back at the ranch would be expecting their feed. When I got home, Ruby was standing, just barely, but she was up, wobbly, stiff, but vertical. I stepped into the barn and watched her for a moment, not saying a word. She saw me and then turned her head toward the open stable door like she expected someone else. Someone smaller, someone who hadn't come. The silence hit harder than it should have. I closed the stall gently and turned toward the bunkhouse, heart heavier than when I'd left. I didn't tell the crew where I'd been. Didn't tell them I was hoping he'd be waiting when I returned. Because admitting that out loud would have meant something I wasn't ready to face, that I wanted him back. Not just for Ruby, for me. 3 days passed. No sign of him. I started leaving the side gate unlatched at night. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't even tell myself why. The skies opened on the third night. Thunder rolled across the hills like distant hooves, and rain swept over Bozeman like a sheet of glass. I stayed in the barn late, keeping Ruby calm. She hated storms. Always had. Her body was healing, but her eyes still carried that weight. The wind rattled the roof. I leaned against the stall gate and listened to her breathe. And then I heard it. Not a bark. A sound softer than that. Pause. I froze. Water dripped from the eaves. The storm hadn't let up. But someone was moving inside the barn. Slow, cautious. I turned and there he was. Kobe. The German Shepherd puppy stepped into the barn like a shadow given shape. Soaked to the bone, legs trembling, mud streak across his belly, one ear folded, eyes locked on Ruby. Not on me. He didn't bark. He didn't move fast. He just walked straight to her stall and lay down right beside her like he'd never left. My throat tightened. I didn't move. I didn't speak. Just stood there watching as Ruby lowered her head, nostrils flaring. She didn't startle. She didn't retreat. She closed her eyes. He pressed his side against the base of the stall, not trying to get in, just being close, present. And in that moment, something inside me cracked. He had come back, not for shelter, not for food, for her. I stepped forward slowly, boots scuffing against the wet floor. He didn't lift his head, didn't growl, didn't shy, just blinked once, then closed his eyes. That was all. He trusted me enough to sleep near me, but not because I'd earned it, because Ruby had. I sat down across from them, just outside the stall gate, rain pounding the roof above us. Watched them breathe, one large, one small, one broken, one brave. And for the first time in years, I didn't flinch. Didn't feel the old fear rise. Didn't hear the scream from decades ago. I just sat in the barn soaked to the skin, heart wide open, and thought he came back. Not for himself, but for someone he refused to leave behind. After that night, Kobe never really left. He didn't live in the house, didn't beg for attention, didn't follow the ranch hands around like most puppies would. He wasn't like other dogs. He stayed close to Ruby always. In the mornings, I'd find him curled outside her stall, tail tucked, eyes half shut, but always alert. When we opened the barn doors, he didn't run out barking. He just stood, stretched, and walked beside her as we helped her outside to the small paddock near the vet station. He didn't play, didn't chase birds or bark at cattle. He just stayed with her, a silent presence, a shadow, a protector. The other hands started to notice. They'd leave a tin bowl near the stall every afternoon, some kibble, a piece of jerky, even bits of leftover stew on colder days, but he never ate when we were around. Never touched it unless Ruby was eating too. She, in turn, seemed to draw strength from him. She still limped badly, and her leg remained bandaged, but her appetite improved. She stood longer each day. Her eyes, once sunken with pain and fear, now followed Kobe like a compass needle. Wherever he moved, she moved. No one could explain it. The vet chalked it up to stress bonding. But I knew better. They were healing together without us. And I was the one who didn't know where to place myself in all of it. Sometimes I'd catch myself watching them for long stretches. Him lying in the straw, head on his paws, Ruby standing beside him, her tail swaying just enough to dust his back. Once one of the newer hands walked into the barn and froze. "Is that dog guarding her?" I nodded. "Is he yours?" I paused. Not really. But even as I said it, I felt something strange stir in my chest. Ownership wasn't the word. It wasn't about possession. Kobe didn't belong to anyone. He chose where he stayed, and he had chosen her. By week's end, I stopped locking the side gate altogether. Stopped pretending I wasn't leaving extra meat in the bowl near Ruby's stall. Stopped avoiding the idea that somehow this German Shepherd puppy had become part of our rhythm, our routine, our quiet heartbeat. I hadn't touched him yet, hadn't called him by name, but every time he looked up at me with those eyes, deep, steady, unreadable, I felt something inside shift. A door I'd bolted shut years ago creaked open, and I wasn't sure I wanted to close it again. It was one of the ranch hands, Kyle, I think, who brought it up. "We should keep him," he said one afternoon, leaning on a pitchfork as we watched Kobe lie beside Ruby in the paddock. "He's good with her. We could train him proper." I didn't respond. "Wouldn't take much," he continued. "He's smart, obedient, calm, would make a solid working dog." "No," I said. "Too fast. Too sharp." Kyle looked over at me, confused. "Why not?" I opened my mouth, then closed it again. The truth caught in my throat. Because I was afraid. Not of him hurting someone, not anymore, but of what would happen if I let him in. I walked away without saying another word. I ended up near the fence line, staring out across the open fields where the mountains rise like broken teeth in the distance. The sun was low, orange bleeding into blue. Wind whipped the tall grass into soft waves. It should have calmed me. It didn't. All I could see was a small German Shepherd puppy curled against a horse's ribs in the rain. A memory that wasn't mine but felt like it had carved itself into my bones. And behind that image, always the echo of another. My sister, her scream, the blood on the porch, the dog they had to put down, the one I never saw coming. I was 9 and I've never forgotten. That was the day I decided dogs were unpredictable, dangerous, not to be trusted. And yet here I was, decades later, watching this puppy, barely more than a baby, sit so still beside 1,000 LEB animal, calming her better than any human ever could. Why him? Why now? Why do I want him to stay? That night, I fed Ruby myself. She was eating again, slowly but with focus. Every few bites, she'd pause and glance sideways, just to make sure he was still there. He always was. I sat in the straw beside her, back against the stall gate, watching Kobe breathe in sync with her. His ears flicked when I moved, but he didn't lift his head. I thought about reaching out, didn't. Instead, I whispered almost without meaning to. "You're not like him, are you?" He didn't react, but something inside me cracked open anyway. A slow, quiet unraveling. I couldn't stop. Maybe I didn't want to. It happened on a Tuesday. Ruby stumbled. She'd been doing better, walking short distances, grazing a little in the pasture, even nuzzling the stable hands when they brought her feed. But that morning, as I led her toward the gate, something gave out. Her back leg, the injured one, buckled hard, and she dropped to one knee with a sharp cry. Before I could react, he was already there. Kobe, the German Shepherd puppy, came from nowhere, silent, fast, determined. He positioned himself under her neck, nudging her upright, pushing gently with his body. Ruby didn't panic. She didn't flinch. She leaned on him. I dropped the lead rope and ran to her side. One hand on her flank, the other gripping the halter. "Easy, girl, easy." And suddenly we were all there together, me on one side, him on the other, holding her steady. For the first time, our hands and paws met at the same moment, same purpose. He didn't growl, didn't move, just looked up at me, and I, without thinking, reached out and touched him. His fur was wet from morning dew, soft but thick under my hand. He didn't pull away, just blinked once, then turned his attention back to Ruby. I froze. That single second, it was nothing and everything. He hadn't wanted to be touched. He'd wanted to be trusted. And in that moment, it felt like he'd finally allowed me in. When we got Ruby back to the barn, Kobe followed at her side like always. But now he glanced back once at me as if to say, "You're part of this now?" That evening, I sat on the porch while the sun dropped behind the hills. I watched them through the barn door. Kobe curled near Ruby's stall, her breathing slow and steady, the quiet between them full of understanding. I didn't speak, didn't need to. Something had changed, not just in them, in me. I remembered my sister's voice after the attack, how she trembled when she saw a dog, how I stood between her and every stray for years thinking I was protecting her, when really I was just shielding myself. But now, a 4-month-old puppy had done what I couldn't. He'd earned trust. He'd healed fear. Not just Ruby's, mine too. And he did it without asking for anything in return. Ruby stood on all 4 legs that morning. No trembling, no hesitation, just a quiet determination in her eyes as she stepped out of the barn, the soft sound of her hooves brushing through the straw. I held my breath, hand loosely on the lead rope, ready to catch her if she faltered, but she didn't. Behind her, Kobe walked in perfect rhythm, head low, ears forward, eyes scanning every movement she made. The German Shepherd puppy didn't bark, didn't pull ahead. He was just there, steady, constant. I took them both out to the lower pasture where the wind rolled gently down the hills, and the early morning sun painted gold across the grass. It was the first time I'd taken Kobe off leash. The gate stood wide open behind us, nothing keeping him here, and he stayed. We walked quietly, just the 3 of us, until we reached the far fence. Ruby grazed. Kobe sat nearby, his eyes occasionally flicking toward me. I found myself watching him more than the horizon. He wasn't a stray anymore. He was choosing this, choosing us. As we turned to head back, Ruby hesitated near the gate. She stopped, tail swishing once. Kobe walked a few paces, then paused, looked back, looked at her, then at me, and in that quiet second, something happened. His tail wagged just once, subtle, careful, as if testing whether it was allowed. I froze. My heart cracked wide open. He chose to follow me. He could have left, could have vanished back into the hills like before. But he didn't. I knelt down slowly, holding my breath. I didn't call him, didn't ask. He stepped toward me on his own, stopped just short of my hand. I didn't touch him. Not yet. But this time, I didn't have to. He was already there waiting. I stood, turned toward the barn, and walked slowly. I heard his paws in the dirt behind me, soft, certain, steady. Kobe had made his choice. Now it was up to me to catch up. It's been 3 months. Kobe's not a puppy anymore. Not really. He's still young, still growing, but there's a weight to him now. A quiet confidence, like he knows his place here. Like he's known it longer than any of us. He's part of the ranch. Not because we trained him, because he chose it. Ruby recovered almost fully. The leg still stiffens in the cold, and she'll never run like she used to. But she walks without pain now, eats strong, sleeps easy, and Kobe's always near. But it was what happened last week that truly showed me who he is. We'd taken in a new horse, a rescue, skittish, scarred, mistrustful. Her ribs poked through her skin, and her eyes never stopped searching for an exit. No one could get near her. Not the vet, not the handlers, not even me. We were standing by the round pen watching her spin herself into a lather when someone muttered, "She's going to hurt herself." And then I saw Kobe at the gate, still calm, watching. I don't know what made me say it, but I opened the gate. He stepped in without hesitation. No barking, no rush, just slow steps across the dirt. The mare froze, snorted, ears back, muscles twitching. Kobe stopped a few feet away. He sat down. That's all. He didn't move again. Not for minutes. Not even when she stamped the ground or threw her head. He just breathed in, out, until she finally took one step closer and then another. And then she stopped and lay down just like that. Silence fell over the ranch. No one said a word. Because in that moment, we all knew he wasn't just a stray. He wasn't just a protector. He wasn't even just a survivor. He was a healer, a bridge between pain and peace. And somehow in saving Ruby, in saving himself, he saved us too. This little guy's journey from abandonment to rehabilitation shows how important nonprofit rescue groups really are. Kobe was never meant to be a pet. He was meant to be a protector, a partner, a presence that calms storms in others. Whether they walk on 2 legs or 4, he came to us as a dusty shadow, a German shepherd puppy with no collar, no home, and no reason to trust. But he stayed. Not for food, not for safety, for Ruby, for healing, and somewhere along the way, for me. Caring for a rescued puppy is more than love. It's responsibility. It's pet care. And sometimes it's letting go of what you thought you knew about dogs, about fear, about yourself, and stepping into something new, something deeper. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Share it. Every time you share one of these stories, you give another stray a voice. You open another gate. You save another Ruby. You welcome another Kobe. Don't forget to subscribe the Animals 2.0 YouTube family.